What if the thing holding you back from everything you want isn't actually a limitation? It's a choice you make every single day. And worse, you don't even realize you're making it. Most people fail not because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they've accepted being average. And the tragedy is that average feels completely normal from the inside. It feels acceptable. It feels like everyone else. Which is precisely why it's so dangerous. Think about this for a second. Right now, someone with your exact same talent, your same education, your same starting circumstances is building an empire while you're still figuring things out. The difference isn't luck. It isn't privilege. It's one thing. And by the end of this conversation, you'll see exactly what it is. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Being average is actually harder than being exceptional. Average requires constant compromise. It requires pushing down your potential every single day. It requires accepting the voice in your head that says you're not good enough to pursue the things you really want. That takes energy. That takes discipline. That takes commitment to mediocrity. But excellence? Excellence is actually a relief. Let me tell you something that changed everything for me. Years ago, I was sitting exactly where you are right now, doing just enough to get by, making enough money to pay the bills, living a life that looked perfectly respectable from the outside, but felt empty on the inside. And I made a decision, not because things got bad, but because I couldn't stand the person I was becoming. That person was dying slowly. And, the worst part, he thought it was normal. The journey from average to exceptional starts with understanding one critical truth. You are not failing because you don't know what to do. You're failing because you've accepted doing less than what's possible. And that acceptance has become a habit. Think about your day. From the moment you wake up, you're making hundreds of small choices. Most of these choices feel insignificant. But here's where it gets interesting. These tiny choices compound. They stack on top of each other, and before you know it, you've built an entire life out of small compromises. The average person wakes up and checks their phone. They skip the gym because they're tired. They take the job that pays okay instead of pursuing the work that matters. They stay in conversations that drain them. They watch someone else succeed and think, well, maybe that's just not for me. And you know what happens next? After a few years, after enough of these small compromises, something calcifies inside you. You start believing that this is just who you are, that this is your level. That excellence is for other people. But here's the thing nobody wants to admit. That belief is a choice too. I learned this from studying the lives of people who achieved remarkable things. And I noticed a pattern. The moment everything changed for them wasn't when they suddenly became talented, or smart, or lucky. It was when they stopped being willing to accept average. Think about what that means. Not think about achieving something great. Think about becoming someone who refuses to be average. There's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Early in his career, a man named Arthur was working a job that paid reasonably well. He was decent at it, competent, nobody complained. He was, by every measure, average. But one day he realized something that terrified him. If he stayed on this path, in 10 years, he would have accumulated a decade of mediocre work. Not 10 years of growth. 10 years of repetition. 10 years of the same average decisions, the same average effort, the same average results. That thought woke him up. He made a decision that most people never make. He decided that from that day forward, every single thing he did would be done at the highest level he was capable of. Not someday. Not when things got better. Right now with what he had, within 3 years, everything changed. Not because the work got easier, but because he became a different person. A person who refused to settle. And here's the psychological part that's so important to understand. Your brain is incredibly efficient. It doesn't want you working harder than necessary. From an evolutionary perspective, that makes sense. Why waste energy? So your brain will always push you toward the path of least resistance. It will justify it. It will make average feel reasonable. Your brain is essentially saying, why do more than you have to? Why make your life harder? And it sounds so logical, doesn't it? But what your brain doesn't understand is that exceptional isn't actually harder. It just feels different at first. The hard part isn't doing excellent work. The hard part is changing your identity from someone who accepts average to someone who refuses it. Let me explain the difference, because this is where most people get it wrong. Most people try to succeed through sheer willpower. They motivate themselves, they set goals, they visualize the outcome. And for a few weeks it works. They're energized, they're committed, they're crushing it. Then something happens. They miss a day, they slip up, they don't feel motivated anymore. And suddenly they're back to average because, fundamentally, they still see themselves as an average person. But when you change your identity, when you actually see yourself as someone who is unwilling to be average, everything shifts. Now you're not fighting against your nature. You're aligned with it. Think about a professional athlete for a moment. They don't wake up and decide whether they feel like training today. They don't motivate themselves into the gym. The training happens automatically because their identity is, I am an athlete. It's not something they do sometimes. It's who they are. The same principle applies to excellence in any area. The moment you shift from thinking, I want to do excellent work, to I am the kind of person who does excellent work, everything changes. Your choices become automatic. Your standards become non-negotiable. Your response to adversity changes because an excellent person doesn't quit when things get hard. That's just part of what they do. Now, here's where most people miss the mark. They think this identity shift happens after they've achieved success. They believe once they've proven they're excellent, then they can start believing it. It's backwards. The identity comes first, the proof comes after. I watched this play out with a woman named Sarah. She was a writer, not a very successful one. She was getting rejection after rejection. Most people in her position would have quit. But she made an unusual decision. She started calling herself a writer. Not a woman trying to be a writer. Not someone who hoped to write someday. A writer now. From the outside, nothing changed. She was still getting the same rejections. She was still struggling financially. But internally, everything shifted. Because now, when she encountered a challenge, she didn't think about quitting. Writers don't quit, they revise. She didn't look for external validation. Real writers know their value. She didn't wait for permission. Writers just write. Within a few years, success followed. But it followed her identity shift, not the other way around. This is the pattern I've seen repeat over and over. The people who break through to the exceptional don't wait until they feel ready. They don't wait until they have all the resources. They don't wait until they've figured everything out. They decide first. They identify as the person they want to become. And then they make every choice from that identity. Here's what makes this so powerful. And I want you to really hear this. Once you've made this shift, average becomes impossible. It's not a willpower thing anymore. It's a character thing. An excellent person can't settle for mediocre work. Not because they're punishing themselves, but because excellence has become their standard. It's like asking a surgeon to operate sloppily. That's not an option. It contradicts their identity. The same is true for you, but you have to make that decision consciously and deliberately. Let me tell you something else that most people never consider. Being average is actually very expensive. Not financially, though that's part of it, but emotionally, psychologically, relationally. When you're living below your potential, there's a constant tension inside you. Part of you knows you could be doing more. Part of you is aware that you're not being true to yourself. Part of you feels the weight of unfulfilled potential. That tension eats at you. It shows up as frustration, as bitterness, as a vague dissatisfaction with life. You look around and see people succeeding and you feel angry, not at them, but at yourself for not pushing harder. The average person carries this weight and then compounds the problem by numbing it. They distract themselves. They consume endlessly. They stay busy so they don't have to feel the discomfort of knowing they could be more. Excellence, paradoxically, is a relief from that pressure. Not because it's easy, but because you're finally being true to yourself. You're finally honoring the potential inside you. The internal conflict dissolves because you're aligned. Your actions match your capabilities, match your values. This is why people who achieve excellence often talk about feeling more alive, more engaged, more energized. It's not because the work is easier. It's because they've stopped fighting themselves. Now, I want to address something I know you're thinking. You're thinking about all the reasons why you can't pursue excellence right now. You're thinking about your circumstances, your limitations, your responsibilities. And yes, there are real constraints. There are real obstacles. I'm not going to pretend that everyone faces identical circumstances. Some people do start with advantages. But here's what I've learned, and this might be the most important thing I share with you. Circumstances constrain your options, but they don't determine your level of excellence. They don't determine the quality of effort you bring. They don't determine your commitment to doing things right. You might not be able to control your circumstances, but you absolutely can control your standard. There was a man named James who was born into poverty. His family had very little. He worked through college. He didn't have the luxury of time. He didn't have financial support. By every measure, he was disadvantaged. But he made a decision. He would do excellent work in whatever he was doing, regardless of what that was. When he was washing dishes, he washed them perfectly. When he was doing homework, he did it like it was the most important work in the world. When he eventually got his first real job, he approached it with the same standard. Nobody was forcing him to work this hard. Nobody was paying him more for being excellent. But he did it anyway, and that commitment changed everything. He got promoted, not because he was the smartest person in the room, but because he was the only one who genuinely cared about the quality of his work. That's where excellence begins, not with perfect circumstances or ideal conditions, but with a decision to refuse mediocrity regardless of the constraints. Here's something else that's critical to understand. The jump from average to excellent doesn't happen gradually. There's a tipping point. Most people think excellence is a spectrum. You get a little better, then a little better, then a little better, until eventually you're excellent. But that's not actually how it works. Excellence is a threshold. You're either above it or below it. You're either someone who accepts being average or someone who refuses it. And while there are degrees of excellence once you've crossed that threshold, the transition itself is sudden. It's like flipping a switch. One day you're making compromises. You're doing just enough. You're accepting less than your potential. The next day you're not. You've decided. Your identity has shifted. And now every choice looks different. The fascinating part is that most people are closer to that threshold than they realize. They're not far away from excellence. They're not missing some special talent or secret knowledge. They're just missing one decision. One decision to stop. Stop making excuses. Stop accepting good enough. Stop pretending you don't know what needs to happen. Stop waiting for permission. Stop hoping circumstances will change. Stop expecting someone else to motivate you. Just stop. And start instead. Start treating your current situation like it matters because it does. Start doing things right, regardless of who's watching. Start pursuing mastery in whatever you're doing right now, not someday. Start building the kind of reputation where people know they can count on you. And watch what happens. I'll tell you what happens, because I've seen it thousands of times. When you make this shift, opportunities show up. Not because you suddenly became lucky, but because you became someone who could actually use those opportunities. People want to work with people who are committed to excellence. People want to invest in people who refuse to be average. Your network expands naturally. Your results improve. Your compensation improves. Your opportunities improve. Not because you got greedy or asked for more, but because you became more valuable. This is the thing that's so hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it yet. Excellence has compounding returns. The moment you commit to it, it starts paying dividends immediately and continues paying them forever. But average also has compounding returns. In the opposite direction, when you accept being average in one area, it affects your identity in other areas. You become someone who settles. And once you've settled in one place, it's easier to settle everywhere. Your standards drop across the board. Your energy decreases. Your relationships suffer. Your health suffers. Your finances suffer. Average is like a gravity well. It pulls everything down. Let me be very direct about something. The time to make this decision is not later. It's not when you have more money. It's not when you have more time. It's not when things are better. It's now, right now. Because the decision itself is free. It costs nothing. And it changes everything. You don't need new skills to start refusing to be average. You don't need new resources. You don't need to quit your job or blow up your life. You just need to decide that from this moment forward, everything you do will be done to the highest standard you're capable of. That's it. That one decision initiates a chain reaction that ripples through every part of your life. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to slip. You're going to have days where you feel like giving up. That's normal. That's part of the process. But those moments don't define your commitment. They're just part of the journey. What matters is the decision underneath. What matters is that you know, at your core, that you are not an average person. You are someone who refuses to settle. You are someone who pursues excellence, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Hold that thought. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't let circumstances convince you that you should lower your standard. Don't let temporary setbacks convince you that excellence isn't worth it. Because I'm telling you, and I've seen this in my own life and in countless others, it absolutely is. This is your moment. This is where your life changes. Not because of what I've told you, but because of what you're going to decide to do about it. The future doesn't belong to people with average efforts. It belongs to people with exceptional commitments. People who refuse to compromise. People who understand that excellence isn't a destination. It's a standard, and starting today, that person can be you. If this changed the way you think, subscribe, because the next lesson might be the one that transforms everything.